Hey crazy people.
Hey guys.
It's Jay and Francis with Fine You're Crazy. We are a family of 9 who live full-time in our RV with 6 of our kids, 2 dogs and a turtle, as we travel around the country to see every national park. And today we're going to share with you another family tour guide for some great stuff in South Dakota. We've already shared about Custer State Park, and now we're going to share about Wind Cave National Park, Jewel Cave National Monument, and Mount Rushmore. A lot to go over in one video, so stay tuned. So this is our family tour guide for Wind Cave National Park. But Wind Cave National Park is located in the Black Hills of South Dakota, and there is so much other stuff to do right there on top of each other in the Black Hills. In fact, it's so much stuff that we really divided it into 2 videos. If you missed our last video, we did an entire video on Custer State Park, a South Dakota State Park.
Such a must-see. You really need to watch it because you'll want to go.
So many things to do there.
Yeah.
And then ringed all around it are so many other national parks and monuments that, I mean, you just can't do it all in a couple of days. I mean, we spent 9 days there and still felt like we could have spent more time.
Right.
So in this video, we're going to cover some of the things that are ringed around the state park. In fact, our first 2 things we're going to talk about are not even above ground. They're underground. 2 amazing caves right there in the Black Hills. Wind Cave National Park and Jewel Cave National Monument. 2 caves are separated by, the entrances are only separated by like 45 miles, but they are such interesting caves because they share such a parallel history. So both caves were discovered by a pair of brothers. Different pairs of brothers, but a pair of brothers that were just walking through the Black Hills and heard a whistling coming out of the rocks. When they went to discover it, they found small openings where the wind was just gushing out at such force. In fact, at Wind Cave, the brother looked down, it knocked his hat off, and that's how they started calling it Wind Cave, because there was so much wind coming out of it. A lot of wind. And it didn't take long before the national government discovered these. And in fact, Wind Cave is the 6th national park that was dedicated. And it was the very first underground park that the National Park Services took custody of. And then it wasn't just a few years later that they did the same thing with Jewel Cave. Both of the caves are enormous. Wind Cave, something like 150 miles has been mapped, making it the 3rd longest cave in America and like the 6th in the world. And if you want to beat that, then you just got to go over to Jewel Cave, because it is now at like 190 something miles mapped. It is the longest cave in the U.S. In fact, there's some people that wonder if the 2 caves are connected, but that hasn't been discovered yet. But there's still a lot to be discovered. In fact, Wind Cave, I don't understand the science of this, but somehow they use the barometric pressure and the wind speeds that are coming out, and they think that only like 5% of the cave has been discovered, mapped out. So you're talking about enormous, enormous caves. But what makes both of them unique is how they were formed. They both were subterranean cave, obviously that's what a cave is, but they were filled with water. They were formed by water, when water eroded out the area. And because when the water left, it left huge deposits of calcium carbonate. And this calcite formed around all of the cave walls. And so they don't really have the huge stalactites or stalagmites like you would think about in a lot of wet caves. They have a few. But what's really impressive is the other structures that are formed there. Boxwork, popcorn, dog's tooth spar. We unfortunately visited during COVID. And so none of the tours for either one. And so we didn't get to go into either cave. We just got to enjoy them through videos, pictures, in the visitor center. But if you're ever there, you've got to take some of those tours.
Yes.
Which brings us to our first must-see, which is, of course, Wind Cave National Park. We went there and were really just blown away by the little bit that we got to see on the outside. Which brings us to our first family pro tip. You need to plan a picnic lunch when you go to Wind Cave. Right around the corner from the visitor center is a great little picnic area. A few picnic tables. It's just a beautiful, beautiful area.
We had a deer that was just eating right next to us, and it was really, really a beautiful day. And you need to plan to take a little while, get out from underground, and take a little picnic lunch for sure.
And then when you're there, that is actually the trailhead for a very, very short trail. I mean, it's probably only 200 yards long, maybe.
Not far at all.
That goes right there from the picnic area and goes to our second family pro tip, which is you need to go visit the natural entrance of the cave, the historic entrance. At both caves, they've put in elevators so there's a little building you walk up to, you get an elevator, and it takes you down to the cave. But at both caves, the natural entrance, the original historical entrance that was discovered, is still there.
Yes.
And Wind Cave was so neat.
We loved that so much. And, you know, when you have this incredible kind of tours and things like that inside these massive caves, it could just go off your radar to head down to a very small little hole that is the actual historical entrance. But that is all that we could do. And I'm so glad that we kind of were forced into doing something we might just have passed over and thought, no, we've seen enough. This is incredible. But we really enjoyed that opportunity to walk down and to see what those guys would have seen.
Two brothers, what they walked up on.
Yes, and to experience that. And you can put your face down there to this hole, and our hair was blowing everywhere. It was every bit Wind Cave, and that was really neat for our kids to see and to experience.
Once you're done with that, though, you're not quite done with Wind Cave, because while most of it, the excitement, so to speak, is underground, there's a lot of Wind Cave that's actually above ground, something like 30,000 acres. And one of the things you got to look out for, there are a few bison that roam around, but it is by far the biggest prairie dog town that we have seen anywhere we've been.
So adorable.
And so just driving slowly down this main road onto the visitor center, they are everywhere. I mean, as far as you can see on both sides of the road. And then once you're done, you get in your car and drive just about 45 miles. It takes about 30, 45 minutes to get to Jewel Cave. So that's our second must-see is Jewel Cave National Monument.
You really need to go there.
Very similar, if you will, in the fact that it's this huge cave underground, all these neat deposits, but very unique deposits to Jewel Cave, even over what you would see in Wind Cave. And like I said, we didn't get to go down in the cave to see that, but what we did see is our first family pro tip in this area, and that is you've got to go in the visitor center. This is one of the neatest visitor centers I think we've visited.
Yeah, because you really don't, you know, maybe you just think of just grabbing your quick map and just getting on the road and doing the things that you want to do. But this visitor center is filled with so much science, so much geology, and a lot of history, but it is hands-on, and there are things for the kids to do.
There's little caves for the kids to crawl through, and they can see climbing equipment, caving equipment. I mean, it's really neat, but the highlight for sure is they've got examples of all of these different types of calcium carbonate formations that you could see down in the cave. They've got them all right there around for you to look at. And then for me, the neatest thing that I thought is on the wall, they have this gigantic painting of a map of the cave, and all these different colors show the different levels down. I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. So another thing that you can do at this cave is we're going to ditto our next family pro tip from Wind Cave and say, go see the historic entrance.
Yes,
a little bit different here at Jewel Cave. At Wind Cave, it's literally right around the corner from the elevator. Like you can walk down the little path to it. But at Jewel Cave, it's probably a couple of miles away. And so you have to get in your car and drive to this other little parking lot. And then there's a little bit longer hike around the edge. It's in Hell's Canyon, and so you walk around and down the edge and along to it, and then boom, right at the end of the trail is this door with just this wind pouring out of it.
Freezing. I mean, it is so cold, and
it's like an air conditioner blowing out of there.
But it was wonderful because it was hot and it was dry, and we had hiked and gone down a bunch of stairs, and we kept going, do you think that's it? Do you think this is it? Because there's actually little caves back up in there, and our kids were able to explore up in there to kind of go back in these little cubbies, and it was really, really fun. It was a beautiful beautiful, beautiful hike, and just huge walls, canyons, and you got to learn a little bit, didn't we? There was like a little house there. We got to experience a little bit of the history, and just to walk again the steps that these historical, people who found it, explorers, found these, and just to have a little piece of the actual history was really neat. And this entrance is not as small as it is for Wind Cave. It's bigger, and you won't be able to stand in front of it very long. So that was kind of fun for the kids to see who could stand in the way the longest.
Joe, why do you think they call it Wind Cave?
You know why they call it Wind Cave, Joe? Yeah. Well, is it windy?
Once you're done underground, you're ready to do some amazing stuff on top of the ground. And of course, that's our next must-see, which is Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
Obviously, you can't get really more iconic of a national monument than Mount Rushmore. But to get to Mount Rushmore is our next must-see, which we're going to talk about first, which is Iron Mountain Road. You really need to take this drive to Mount Rushmore. Don't get confused. I mean, obviously it's a two-way road, so you can take it both ways. But don't take it from Mount Rushmore back. You want to start, it starts right outside of Custer State Park, right by the Custer Visitor Center, and drives to Mount Rushmore. And that's the direction you want to take it in. Because the designers of this road, there are several tunnels in there. But what's really neat about these tunnels is two of them specifically, they carved in such a way so that when you're coming, again, you got to be driving to Mount Rushmore, but as you're coming through the tunnels, the end of the tunnel literally frames the sculpture off in the distance. And so as you're coming out, there's Mount Rushmore.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was just so neat, and just a really neat drive as well. Through the hills, there's a couple of wooden corkscrew bridges that go down that our kids just thought were super neat.
Are they pigtail? Are they the pigtail bridges?
The pigtail ones, yep.
Yeah, pigtail bridges.
Super neat. And so you definitely want to take some time, to an extra few minutes to come in from that direction.
It's a beautifully designed road. It is through a gorgeous area of the park.
And then, of course, once you get to the end of it, then you are at Mount Rushmore. And I got to tell you, I know we say this all the time, but we were very caught off guard by the experience at Mount Rushmore.
Yes.
I mean, we knew we were going to go see these 4 giant heads carved in the mountain. Everybody knows that, right? And I thought, hey, we're going to go, hey, look, cool, and leave. There's so
No.
much more to do there, so much history, and just really, really neat things. Our next family pro tip really kind of has to do with the Iron Mountain Road and Mount Rushmore. This is one of our family's favorites, but it's Gypsy Guides. This is a
Yes.
great place. There's actually one that encompasses both kind of all of the Black Hills.
Yes.
So it's Rushmore, Iron Mountain Road, the Wildlife Route. There's different ones all included in it.
Gypsy Tours, if you don't know, if you haven't watched any of our other videos, it's one that we use all the time. Our kids call him Gypsy Jim. He's like our other friend that comes with us on all of our trips. But it is a GPS-oriented app that you can get, and it tells you all along the way, everywhere you are, stories, history, geology. There is so much that he offers and brings to your trip.
So we were learning some really cool history about Rushmore even before we got there. So a couple of things are really neat. So number one, Mount Rushmore was not intended to be Mount Rushmore. It was originally thought of by Governor of South Dakota, Peter Norbeck, and some other historians in the area. And what they wanted was to turn some of the spires that are in the Black Hills into classic cowboy sculptures. And so that was their idea. And so they brought in this famous sculpture, Gutenbergum, and he said, number one, these spires are not really the right kind of rock to work on this. And he said, you know what I think you need to do? I think you need to do something with national significance. I think we should carve some presidents. And so then they started looking around and they found Mount Rushmore. And he said, right here it is. And so they started carving. And it took, it was like 400 workers, 14 years to carve these four faces out. And this is what blew me away, pun intended. They did 95% of the carving with dynamite. Dynamite.
That's how they did this incredible sculptures.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Amazing.
So that's why there's like 450,000 tons of rubble at the bottom of the mountain, because they just all left it there. So then once they got the major outline done with the dynamite, they would come back and do the finishing work with jackhammers, and then specialized jackhammers called bumpers, where they would kind of smooth it out. And what's incredible, and there's a really neat film in the visitor center that kind of shows some of this.
Yeah, and you really need to see that.
Yeah,
so that would be one of the tips that I would say, is that you really need to head into the visitor center. There's a lot of history there. There is a lot of hands-on. You can see these
some cool
bumpers.
hands-on stuff for the kids.
Yeah, you can see some of the bumpers. You can see some of the equipment that they would have used. You actually get to do a dynamite blow, and you can choose which which place you want to do it. And also, there is a film that you think, oh, film snooze fest. It's really not. It was really, really neat and a good experience. So if you get a chance, and it is open during COVID, you need to make sure to head over there as one of your opportunities to stop off.
And so then once you've kind of gone through the visitor center, there's a really, really neat hike that's not too strenuous. There are a good amount of stairs on it.
Yeah, there is.
It's overall not that long, called the President's Trail. And it's taking it gets you as close to the mountain as you can get in any other way. And what we thought was really neat about it is as you walk along it, it gives you all these different views of the
each president.
But then along the path, they also have these big kind of displays about each president and telling you what they did and why they were chosen, when they were finished. Also, another fun fact we learned was Washington is the far left. Originally, Jefferson was put to his left, and then the rock wasn't working, so it was messing up, and so they blew his face off, and they moved him to the other side.
And they were supposed to be busts from like the waist up. So when you are experiencing the President's Walk, you'll also come about to the Sculptor's Studio, which is kind of how they did the smaller versions before they did the life-size version. And so if you look close, you can see a little bit of like Washington's lapels and how they would have been dressed and some of the iconic outfits that they had. And so it was neat to see how it had kind of evolved over the process and what worked and what didn't work. And one of the things that was really special for me as a parent is that as we walked through here, our son, he would run from one to one to one, Christopher would, and he would say, I just love American history. You don't hear kids say, I love American history very often, or at least I didn't, until you really walk it along these trails and you begin to see history jump out of the books and come to life.
And so once you have walked the President's Trail, you deserve a break and a cool treat, which is our next family pro tip. You have got to stop by the gift store and get some ice cream. But it's not just any ice cream. It is a recipe that Thomas Jefferson himself brought back from France when he came back right before he was president. And they still make it there in the place. And I got to be honest with you, we got it because
it's TJ's ice cream.
That's TJ's ice cream.
TJ's vanilla.
It's the best, hands down, vanilla ice cream I've ever put in my mouth. Ever. I mean, it was like we were just all blown away.
So good. But not only that, right outside from there is a lovely little patio terrace, and it sits right in the shadow of Mount Rushmore. So you sit right there and just look at it. And that outside of the main promenade was an incredible view and just a really quaint little place to go. And everything is beautiful about Mount Rushmore. The flags of each of the states as you walk down, it's just majestic. It's regal. You feel just such a kind of an American pride of just our history and all the states that make this. And as we're traveling, you know, we see states and our kids were running, so we've been to there, we've been to that state. And just to be able to see such an undertaking and it come to life, it's really, really a must see. And you think it's just a statue, but it is so much more than that.
They did such a good job with all the gift shops and the flag row. I read somewhere it's crazy. So the 14 years to build the actual Mount Rushmore cost a little less than $1 million. When they came in and built all of the extra stuff that's there now, the terrace, the gift shops, the flag row, cost $56 million. So
wow, that's some good ice cream right there.
Exactly right. So you definitely need to take some extra time at Mount Rushmore. We thought it would be a stop through. We ended up spending a whole day there, and could have spent more. We loved it, and we really think your family will too. What you eating?
Vanilla ice cream.
Vanilla? What kind of vanilla ice cream?
TJ's vanilla ice cream.
Who's TJ?
I don't know.
Who's TJ?
You never told me he was TJ.
Thomas Jefferson.
Thomas Jefferson.
So whose ice cream is it?
Thomas Jefferson.
Nice.
Did you not see his picture in there?
No.
So how does it taste? So this ice cream is 200 years old?
Tastes like history.
It's good.
It's just good.
So that is it for our second portion of our Black Hills Custer State Park, but also Mount Rushmore, Wind Cave, and Jewel Cave. There's a lot to see. And the great thing is it's really close together. And so if you're planning a trip there, stay centrally and have a wonderful time. Take plenty of time and see all of these great places. And so if you missed our first video about the first part of Custer State Park and all the fun we had there, make sure that you click on the video below. And then if you would like to join us on this journey to see all the national parks and all the places in between, you need to subscribe and become one of our community, because we have the greatest, sweetest, kindest community, and we would love for you to join us. And also, we always love it if you would give us the thumbs up. Let us know if this video is something that you enjoyed and you'd like to see more, and we hope you'll continue to have crazy fun with your crazy family. Bye, guys.